My husband and I bought a girl named Ivy from a slave market, where she was on the brink of starvation. Over the years, I did not just teach her to read, write, and manage accounts. I promoted her from a common drudge to the chief stewardess of our estate. Me husband, Eric, said she reminded him of me in my youth, and his indulgence fed an ambition in her that grew to touch the sky. It all came to a head at the family banquet. Knowing my delicate, cold constitution, she still placed a plump, peeled crab on my plate. "My lady has given me a new life. Everything I have you have given me." Her voice was clear, but her eyes held a glint of defiance. "This crab is a token of my heart. If you do not accept it, I will be too fraught with anxiety to rise, and can only kneel here forever." The table fell silent. A few distant relatives wore expressions of keen anticipation. Even my husband chuckled, his tone indulgent. "Look at that spirit. She truly has your flair from back then, my lady. Just one bite, it won't harm you." I took a sip of warm wine and spoke coolly. "My constitution is too cold for crab. I cannot eat it. If you wish to kneel, then kneel." This wasn't the first time Ivy had tested my boundaries. When a servant grows too bold, it is time for a reminder of their place. Me gaze bypassed the crab and landed on the gold and kingfisher, feather hairpin Ivy wore, a reward I had given her last month for a job well done. "Ivy," I said, my voice calm but commanding silence from the entire hall. "Since you say everything you have was given by me, then this token of your heart is one I must acknowledge." I turned to Eric, a faint smile on my lips. "My dear husband, since you feel she is so like my younger self, why not test her? When I first took over managing this household, how did I deal with those corrupt servants who lined their own pockets and deceived their masters?" Eric's expression flickered. It was an old story. My methods then had been severe. I had the ringleaders publicly flogged before selling them and their families to the harshest, coldest territories. The discipline of the estate was restored overnight. Of course he remembered. Ivy's smile froze, a flash of panic in her eyes. I continued, unhurried. "Since you speak so often of gratitude, allow me to teach you another lesson. The distinction between master and servant is the foundation of this house. If the foundation shifts, the entire structure can collapse in an instant." I raised my hand and pointed to the hairpin in her hair. "Just like this pin, what I can give, I can also take away." Before the words had fully left my mouth, I hurled my wine cup. The cup did not fly toward Ivy. It struck the knee of the deputy steward beside her, a man who often colluded with her and had been about to speak in her defense. With a pained cry, the deputy steward fell to his knees. Everyone was stunned. "Steward Lee," I said, my gaze cold as I looked at the crumpled man on the floor. "Last winter, you secretly skimmed from the servants' winter clothing allowance, replacing quality cotton with cheap reeds. The silver you embezzled, through whose hands did it pass, and where was it sent? Must I spell it all out before the Marquis and our relatives?" Steward Lee's face turned ashen, began banging his head on the floor. "Mercy, my lady. It was Miss Ivy who said you would never look into such details and told me to." Ivy's face went white as a sheet. She looked desperately at Eric, her eyes welling with tears. "My lord, I did no such thing. Steward Lee is slandering me." Eric stepped forward, attempting to place a placating hand on my shoulder. "Lauren, my dear," he said with a forced playfulness. "It is just a crab. Why dredge up these old matters and disturb the peace of the household?" I brushed his hand away coldly. "The disturbance is not of my making, but the work of parasites within these walls. If I do not cut them out today, I fear one day someone will be climbing over my head to rule this house." My eyes swept over Ivy. "You said just now that if I did not eat this crab, you would kneel forever." Ivy's voice trembled. "My lady, I was wrong." Eric was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. "Lauren Sheffield, that is enough. We will deal with Steward Lee later. This is a family banquet." What I could not bear was this weak attempt to smooth things over, this blatant favoritism. I rose slowly and walked to stand before Ivy, looking down at her. Then I reached out and calmly removed the kingfisher hairpin from her hair. It seems the gifts I give are too heavy for you to wear. With a twist of my wrist, I snapped the exquisite golden pin in two and threw the pieces to the floor, where they landed with a sharp clatter. Just like this loyalty of yours. It appears beautiful, but it breaks with the slightest pressure. Ivy stared at the broken pin, her body trembling, and looked at Eric with tear-filled eyes. Eric seized my wrist, his voice a low snarl. She is just a servant. Must you take it this far? Must you humiliate me in front of so many people? I winced in pain but laughed, looking up at him. Eric Crestwood, are you raising a hand to me now, for a servant? His handsome face tightened, his eyes darkening like a winter pond. He spoke as if recalling something, his tone icy. Do not forget your place. If I had not pulled you out of that den of entertainers, you would now be. A sharp pain pierced my heart, but my smile only grew more dismissive. I cut him off. And you, Eric, do not forget, if I had not dragged you out of that death trap surrounded by enemy soldiers, on this crippled leg of mine, the grass on your grave would be several feet high by now. Eric's pupils contracted. My words struck a nerve. He glanced at the red mark already forming on my wrist. Confiscate double the amount he stole and sell him and his family. As for Ivy? He paused, avoiding her pleading gaze. Confine her for 3 days to reflect on her actions. He made a show of force, only to let her off lightly. I had no desire to watch this farce any longer. Leaning on my staff, I turned to leave. The old injury in my knee, already aggravated when I threw the cup, was now throbbing with pain. This leg was a permanent reminder of the day he was ambushed by political rivals. I had ridden into the enemy camp alone and fought our way out, protecting him. A poisoned arrow had damaged the bone and sinew. On rainy days, or when I was agitated, the pain was excruciating. The night we escaped, he had held me tight. Lauren, you are the only wife I, Eric Crestwood, will ever have. I will never fail you. In the past, if I had left in such anger, he would have followed, helping me explaining. This time, as I reached the door, I saw in my periphery that he remained rooted to the spot, bending down to help the still, kneeling, pitiful Ivy to her feet. My heart turned to ice. Back in my chambers, the pain in my knee was a searing fire. I dismissed my attendants and leaned against the chaise lounge alone. The autumn wind rising outside only added to the desolation. Once we had shared hardships and deep affection. Now a mere servant had driven us to this. In the evening, my trusted matron Hill hurried in, her face flush with anger. My lady, the Marquis, he has handed over the management of your 3 most profitable silk manors in the south to that wretched Ivy. The ledgers and tokens of authority have already been sent to her. My fingers trembled, nearly spilling the hot tea in my cup. The southern silk manors were my mother's dowry. He knew they were my bottom line. Are you certain? My voice was unnervingly calm. I heard it with my own ears. He also said Miss Ivy is clever and should learn to manage practical affairs, lest she be confined to the inner court all day. Matron Hill's voice shook with rage. What poison has that vixen fed him? This is like tearing your heart out, my lady. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath to swallow the metallic taste rising in my throat. Just then, a young maid entered timidly with a letter, saying Miss Ivy had sent it. The paper was of the finest quality, carrying Ivy's cloying signature scent. In the letter, she first apologized for her impropriety at the banquet, but her tone held no remorse. Then, her writing took a different turn. She mentioned that an old steward from one of the silk manors had come to see her, and had hinted at a desire to arrange a marriage for his son. I know my station is low, and I would not dare to aim so high. I have already politely refused, she wrote. The ink bleeding slightly, a deliberate flourish. In this life, I wish only to serve the Marquise and my lady with all my heart. I am especially grateful for the Marquise's trust and esteem. My heart knows its place, and I would rather spend my days in quiet service than betray this feeling. quiet service. I almost laughed out loud. She was declaring that her ambitions lay not with the son of a steward, but with the master of the house himself. And that trust and esteem was a clear reference to Eric handing her the silk manners. Prepare the carriage. I opened my eyes, their depths frozen over. We are going to the country villa. Do not alert anyone. Have Captain Zhang follow us discreetly with a trusted team. Eric had said this morning he was going to the villa on official business. It seemed this busyness was of the warm and fragrant variety. The jostling of the carriage intensified the pain in my knee. I instructed my guards to surround the villa, unseen, and to wait for my signal. When I arrived, the villa's main hall was brightly lit. Ivy was holding a ledger, leaning close to Eric and murmuring something to him. Eric was reclining, a hint of weariness on his brow but no sign of intoxication. He was listening intently. My lord, you see, the accounts from the Suzhou manor tallied with the new method you suggested are indeed much clearer. Ivy's voice was filled with just the right amount of admiration. Her finger traced a line in the ledger, almost touching the back of his hand. But this transaction here, I am too foolish to understand. I need my lord's guidance. Eric made no move to pull away. Instead, he followed her finger with his eyes and explained a few points. The proximity between them was an unmistakable sign of intimacy and trust. He was truly teaching her the core of the business, passing on the burdens I had once shared with him so easily to another. Ivy leaned back slightly, almost settling into his embrace. She looked up at him, her gaze adoring. With my lord's guidance, I see it all so clearly. That intimate posture, that tutelage, that so clearly crossed the line between master and servant, was a cold needle piercing my last illusion. He could be so patient and close with another woman, yet completely disregard the pain and boundaries of his own wife. I threw open the door. A cold wind carrying my fury swept into the room. Seeing me, Eric's face changed instantly. He instinctively stood up. My lady, what are you doing here? The wind is strong today, and your leg is unwell. I told you to rest at home. His voice held a hint of panic. Ivy immediately straightened, a flicker of alarm on her face that quickly morphed into a look of wronged innocence. She curtsied. Greetings, my lady. I was merely asking the Marquis for help with a difficult matter in the accounts. I meant nothing else. I looked at them, one feigning anger, the other pitifully innocent. It was as if the rightful wife, was the unreasonable one for interrupting. Help with the accounts? I sneered, my eyes fixed on where their hands had just been. I was unaware my husband had developed such a passion for tutoring his maids in accounting late at night. The hands, on method of teaching. Which school of etiquette does it belong to? Eric's face darkened. Do you still care for the dignity of this house? At that moment, Ivy stood up, a strange, almost pitying smile on her face. She walked slowly towards me, her voice low enough for only the three of us to hear. My lady, why be so angry? You see, the Marquise has now even entrusted the southern silk manners to me. You have worked yourself to the bone for this family, ending up with a body full of injuries. It is time for you to rest. Some positions, and some people, must be let go when the time comes. Her words were like poisoned needles, aimed precisely at my deepest wounds. She wasn't defending herself. She was declaring victory, reminding me how Eric's trust and affection were slowly tilting in her favor. Hearing this, Eric frowned, as if he wanted to reprimand Ivy. But in the end, he only turned to me in frustration. Lauren, listen to yourself. Ivy means well. She wants you to rest. Look at you now. Do you have any of the grace of a matriarch left? Watching him defend her so blindly, my heart turned to stone. I had given him everything, only to have him indulge a servant in such a soul-crushing provocation against me? Eric. My voice was eerily calm, born of extreme anger and disappointment. The southern silk manners must be returned today. They are my dowry, my bottom line. Whoever touches them, dies. Furthermore, my gaze, sharp as a razor, swept across Ivy's triumphant face. Since she is now so capable, she can move into one of the outer residences. an unmarried maid constantly in the presence of the master of the house. What will people say of this family's reputation? Eric was thoroughly enraged. He saw my words as a challenge to his authority, as me being utterly unreasonable. He swept his sleeve back violently. Enough, Lauren. I think you have truly gone mad. Men, the lady is overwrought and needs to rest. Escort her back to the manor, and do not let her leave her courtyard without my command. I looked at him, his familiar face suddenly a stranger's. The young man who had shared life and death with me was lost, swallowed by power and flattery. Two stout maids bought by Ivy stepped forward. Under the guise of supporting me, they pinned my arms with bruising force. They gagged me with a cloth, and as Eric turned away with an impatient wave, they dragged me to a dark, dusty storage room in the back of the villa. I was shoved to the floor, the smell of dust filling my lungs. Ivy entered soon after, her face stripped of all deference, wearing only the cold smirk of a winner. "My lady," she said, wiping her fingers with a handkerchief, as if she had touched something unclean. "You taught me that the deepest cut is to the heart. Were my words just now sharp enough for you?" She knelt down to my level, her eyes filled with undisguised ambition and malice. "Do you know why the Marquis was so weary earlier? He had a difficult day at court and came to me to unburden himself. It was I who soothed him. I who helped him reorganize the accounts and find new sources of revenue. And you? What have you done besides question him, argue with him, and use old favors to pressure him?" She reached out with a lacquered nail and dug it into my neck, breaking the skin. The metallic scent of blood filled the air. "Tell me, when a man needs comfort, and finds it always in the arms of another woman, where do you think his heart will turn?" She laughed softly, her voice like a hissing snake. "This estate, and the position of its mistress, will be mine sooner or later. You just watch." I could sense the hidden Captain Zhang and his men growing restless, but I signaled them with my eyes to wait. The pain in my heart had numbed into an extreme calm. After a while, there was movement from the outer room. Eric's footsteps were heavy, his mood still dark. Ivy immediately adopted a gentle tone and went to meet him. "My lord, why are you not yet resting? Are you still troubled by what happened with the lady? It is all my fault. It has nothing to do with you." Eric's voice was thick with fatigue. "It is her. She is becoming more and more unreasonable. My lord, do not be angry. My lady, perhaps she is just too concerned for you," Ivy said, her voice growing softer. "Let me massage your temples. It will help you relax." There was the rustling of clothes, Ivy's gentle murmurs, and Eric's breathing gradually evening out. There were no drugs involved, just a tired man succumbing to the allure of a soft and gentle escape. In the darkness, I closed my eyes. This clear-headed, willing betrayal was far more chilling than one induced by any potion. He was not bewitched. He had simply chosen the one who made him more comfortable, just as I thought the night would be spent in endless disappointment. Crack! A pale bolt of lightning tore across the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. The moment the thunder cracked, Eric's voice in the other room stopped. After a brief silence, he spoke, a note of panic in his voice. "The thunder? Lauren. Lauren cannot bear the sound of thunder. She's alone." I could imagine Ivy's smile freezing on her face. "My lord." She tried to hold him back. "No." Eric's voice was tinged with an undeniable urgency, as if the thunder had shocked a part of his conscience, or just his habit, awake. "I have to go check on her. Ivy, you rest now." Then the sound of his hasty footsteps faded away. The door to my dark room was thrown open. Ivy stood in the doorway, her face twisted in the shadows. The carefully crafted atmosphere of intimacy had been shattered by a few claps of thunder. Her frustration and rage were palpable. "You heard that, didn't you?" Her voice was shrill. "He still remembers you're afraid of thunder. But what does it matter? It's just a pathetic bit of guilt. The person he truly trusts, the one he relies on, is me." I had already removed the gag and untied my wrists. I stood up calmly, brushing the dust from my dress. Is that so? I looked at her, my eyes devoid of any emotion but a profound coldness. But what he can give you is not what I ever wanted, and what I can take from him is beyond your wildest imagination. I clapped my hands lightly. From the shadows, Captain Zhang and the elite shadow guard emerged. How could you? The carriage had not yet reached the main gate of the estate when I heard Eric's frustrated shouting from within. Get out! Who gave you permission to set foot in here? Then a clear, languid, and somewhat playful young male voice drifted out. Why so angry, Lord Crestwood? It was Sister Lauren who promised long ago to have me marry into the family and become the master of this house. I pushed open the door to the side chamber to find Eric, his face dark as a storm cloud, glaring at a young man lounging in a rosewood armchair. The man was dressed in moon white brocade, his hair held by a jade coronet. He idly tapped an ivory-handled fan against his palm, the very picture of a handsome rogue. When he saw me, a smile flickered in his eyes. He snapped his fan shut, stood, and bowed with a playful air. Sister Lauren, Lord Crestwood is in quite a temper. I was nearly thrown out. Seeing me safe, the tension in Eric's face eased slightly. He strode forward and grasped my wrist, his grip unyielding. Lauren, where were you last night? He raised a hand to touch my cheek, but I turned away. I sent men to search the entire estate and couldn't find you. At this hour and with your health, how could you go out alone? I looked at him silently, then asked, Eric, I only ask you this. Last night did you do anything to betray the vows between us? He stiffened, the color draining from his face. A flicker of panic crossed his eyes. Lauren, what are you saying? Ivy and I spoke harshly last night. I was angry and lost my composure. But there was nothing improper between us. We have been married for years. He moved to embrace me. At that moment, Ivy, held by two matrons, began to struggle. My lord, save me. The lady is going to sell me. All because I was impudent at the villa yesterday and disrespected her. I know I was wrong. I beg you, my lord. For the sake of our past connection, please plead with the lady for me. She wept, a picture of misery. Such a neat turn of phrase, impudent and disrespected, to gloss over her soul, crushing provocations of the previous night. Eric hesitated, then looked at me. Lauren, Ivy is still young and may act rashly. You can discipline her. There is no need to sell her. She is, after all, part of this household. Those words were like needles of ice, piercing my heart. There was a time when all his protection and favor were for me alone. Even if I was the one winning an argument, he would pull me behind him and tell the other person coolly, my wife is straightforward. If she has offended you, I will take full responsibility. But now, that protection was offered to another woman. My throat felt tight. My voice was as faint as a sigh. She is only 3 years younger than I am. The man in white, Landon Gray, son of the Duke of Zhenguo, let out a soft chuckle, tapping his fan against his palm. Is Lord Crestwood blind? Have you not seen the fresh scratches on Sister Lauren's neck? This maid speaks of disrespect. Did she use a knife? Only then did Eric notice the faint marks peeking from under my collar. His face changed dramatically. He stepped forward. You're hurt. When did this happen? Does it hurt? I stepped back, avoiding his outstretched hand. Landon moved smoothly to stand between us. At the same time, the shadow guards who had followed me shifted silently, their cold presence instantly dominating the room. Eric's eyes swept over the stern, faced, formidable guards, and his pupils narrowed. The Sheffield Shadow Guard, Lauren? You summoned the Shadow Guard. What could have possibly happened to warrant such a measure? I said flatly. I told you. The Southern Silk manners are my bottom line, not to be touched by others. Eric, I warned you. Landon smiled, fanning himself. Has Lord Crestwood forgotten? Sister Lauren is from the Sheffields of Longxi, a true ancient and noble house. She is not some weak woman who needs to depend on her husband's favor. Did you think that without this estate, she would have nowhere to go? Eric's face went pale. He knew my background, of course, but over the years, as I had dulled my own edges to manage his household and help him secure his position at court, he had gradually forgotten that I was not a vine clinging to him for support. Landon did not spare him. His tone grew sharper. When Lauren's father was in trouble and she was being hunted by his enemies, forced to hide in the city, it was you who saved her. From then on, she devoted herself to you. When you lay wounded for half a year, who nursed you day and night? When you were poisoned by your rivals, delirious and near death, who risked everything to find the antidote? Eric's breathing became ragged. Stop it. All of that. Of course you can say you don't remember, Landon sneered. Because Sister Lauren bore all the suffering alone. Do you know why her constitution is so cold now? Why she can no longer bear children? It was from that time, when she fell into a frozen pool while searching for your cure. It damaged her body, and the child she was carrying. That child. He paused, watching the blood drain from Eric's face. Do you even remember that you once had a child? Eric staggered back, grabbing a table to steady himself. His voice trembled. A child. What child? Landon, do not speak such nonsense. Am I speaking nonsense? Why don't you ask Sister Lauren herself? Landon's gaze was like a dagger. Eric Crestwood, you have forgotten the sacrifices of your wife, and instead entangle yourself with a servant. Where is your conscience? Seeing the tide turn, Ivy cried out. My lord, I was wrong. It was all my fault. I beg you to ask the lady to spare me this once. Eric looked at the weeping Ivy, then at my stone, cold face. The struggle in his eyes intensified. Finally, he spoke. Lauren, Ivy knows her mistake. It was my fault for being too lenient. You, spare her this time. I promise to discipline her strictly. At that moment, my heart sank to the bottom of an icy abyss. I slowly raised my eyes to meet his. Eric, do you remember the child we lost? His whole body shook. He stared at me in shock. I was 7 months pregnant when I took a poisoned arrow meant for you. The shock sent me into early labor, and the child did not survive. My voice was devoid of emotion, but each word was a hammer blow. The imperial physician said I would likely never conceive again. When you were unconscious, I held your hand and thought that as long as you woke up, a life with just the two of us would be enough, even without children. A faint, desolate smile touched my lips. It seems that was a foolish dream. Eric's face was ashen, his lips trembling. Lauren, I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. I cut him off. When you woke, you had forgotten everything, remembering only to pity this orphan you brought into our home. I turned to Ivy. You say you were wrong. She kowtowed desperately. I was wrong. Please have mercy, my lady. I will work like an ox to repay you. Very well, I nodded slightly. Then I will give you a chance to live. Under everyone's watchful eyes, I said clearly. Return to where you came from. I will have you sent back to your hometown. Ivy's face lost all color. She shrieked, my lady. There is no one left there. It's a place of exile. To go back is a death sentence. Then leave it to fate. Or would you prefer the Shadow Guard handle it now? She collapsed, finally understanding that I had no mercy left to give. I looked at the man with whom I had once shared life and death and said softly, Eric Crestwood, the bond between us ends today. The papers for our divorce will be sent to you soon. Sign them. His eyes filled with panic. No, Lauren, I can't lose you. You are the only one in my heart. In your heart? I laughed. Is that why you allowed others to hurt me time and again? I walked towards him, forcing him to meet my gaze. Eric, your heart makes me sick, he stammered. No, I just thought she was like you in your youth. Like me, I sneered. Eric, in my youth, I never learned such treachery and ingratitude. I had no wish to see his regretful face any longer. Tuck Ivy away and do as I commanded. The Shadow Guard immediately dragged the wailing Ivy out. Eric tried to stop them but was blocked by Landon's men. Lord Crestwood, Landon said with a light laugh. Did you know that for your sake, Sister Lauren turned down proposals from countless noble families, including my own? He moved to my side, his posture relaxed. But perhaps it is all for the best. Sister Lauren, why not consider me? Our families are equal. My looks are passable. And most importantly, my eyes and heart have room for only one. I shot him a sideways glance but did not push him away. Eric watched us stand together, his eyes burning with rage. Lauren, no, give me one more chance. I know I was wrong. It's too late. My voice was calm. From the moment you chose to protect her, the bond between us was severed. I said to Landon, let's go. Landon smiled and agreed, turning with me. Lauren, Eric collapsed to his knees behind us. Please, don't go. I did not look back. 3 months was enough time for many things to settle. I did not act ostentatiously, but the quiet movements of the Shadow Guard, combined with the clear support of the Duke's family, was enough for the shrewd officials and noble houses to see which way the wind was blowing. Eric was heavily criticized for mismanaging his household, favoring a servant, and mistreating his wife. The memorials impeaching him piled up like snowflakes. Although the Emperor did not punish him immediately, his favor had waned significantly. Many powers that had once aligned with the Crestwood estate began to curry favor with the Sheffields. One day, I was reviewing accounts in the study of my family's villa. Landon was lounging by the window, idly peeling grapes. Sister Lauren, you are now the most sought after woman in the capital. He offered a glistening grape to my lips. I turned my head to avoid it, unoffended. He popped it into his own mouth. Those old fossils who used to say women shouldn't be seen in public are now fighting to send you invitations. I didn't look up, my pen never stopping. Empty fame is worth less than solid gold. The Southern Silk Manors had been successfully reclaimed, along with several other properties belonging to the Sheffields that had been in Eric's control. It was all done with swift and decisive action on my part. Landon leaned closer, his chin almost resting on my shoulder, his breath warm against my ear. Then, what do you think of this solid asset? My family is wealthy. My looks are fine, and most importantly, he lowered his voice playfully. I promise to be obedient and never cause you trouble with other women. My pen paused, a drop of ink spreading on the paper. Just as I was about to speak, a maid's voice came from outside. My lady, the men sent to keep watch have returned. Enter. A servant in gray clothes entered silently and bowed. My lady, Ivy was sent to her hometown of Luzhou half a month ago. As you instructed, she was given no money, only 3 days' worth of rations. She tried to find old acquaintances for help, but word of her betrayal had already spread, and no one would take her in. 2 days ago, she was found ill in a ruined temple. Last night, she passed away. I was silent for a moment, then said flatly, I see. Find a place to bury her. No need for a headstone. Yes, my lady. The servant withdrew. Landon raised an eyebrow. She got off easy. If it were up to me, she would have suffered a great deal more. I put down my pen and looked out at the blooming magnolias. She was born of little, and I was the one who raised her too high, making her forget her place. Falling back to where she began was the ultimate punishment for her. I had given her a chance. She had chosen her own path to ruin. Landon looked at my calm profile and said suddenly, Eric Crestwood has been stripped of his title. My fingers curled almost imperceptibly, then relaxed. Oh, the censorate jointly impeached him on multiple charges. Favoring a concubine was the pretext, but forming factions and illegally seizing land were the real crimes. The Emperor was furious. He has decreed that Eric's title be revoked, his assets confiscated, and he will soon be exiled to the southern borderlands. He watched my expression. Do you want to see him one last time? I slowly shook my head. There is no need. Life and death, fortune and ruin. It is the path he chose for himself. Just then, a commotion arose outside, mixed with the shouts of guards and a hoarse, desperate cry. Lauren Sheffield, I know you're in there. Come out and see me. I'm begging you. It was Eric's voice, but it was broken and raw, nothing like its former clarity. Landon's face darkened, and he stood to deal with it. I placed a hand on his arm. "I will go." Outside the main gate, Eric was in rags, his hair disheveled, held back by two shadow guards at the bottom of the stone steps. His face was streaked with dirt, his eyes bloodshot. When he saw me, he looked like a drowning man spotting a piece of driftwood and struggled desperately to reach me. "Lauren, you finally came to see me." He was sobbing, tears and snot streaming down his face. "I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. I couldn't see clearly. I was bewitched. Ivy is dead. It's all in the past. Let's start over, please. I will only have you from now on." I stood on the steps, looking down at him. In just 3 months, the once dashing Marquis of Crestwood had become this withered exile. "Eric," I said, my voice as calm and flat as a frozen lake, "between you and me, all ties have been severed." "No, they haven't." He shook his head frantically. "Lauren, have you forgotten our past?" "I have not forgotten," I interrupted, my gaze as cold as a mountain spring. "It is precisely because I have not forgotten that I can never go back." He looked at my fine robes, the symbol of the Sheffield matriarch, then at the elegant Landon gray behind me. An immense despair and jealousy filled his eyes. "Is it because of him, Lauren? Tell me, have you and he been?" "Eric." Landon cut him off sharply. "At death's door, and you still seek to slander Lauren's name. You trampled on a true heart, and now you play the part of the regretful lover. It is sickening." Eric was speechless, left only with ragged breaths. He looked at me, his tears mixing with the dirt on his face. "Lauren, for the sake of our marriage, for the sake of the time I saved you from that den of entertainers. You saved me once," I said slowly, each word clear and precise. "In return, I gave you a life, a brilliant future, and an unborn child, Eric. We have long been even." That sentence was the final verdict. It broke him completely. He collapsed to the ground, sobbing like a child. I did not look at him again. I turned to Landon. "The road to the south is long. Prepare some money and medicine for him. Don't let him die on the way and dirty the Sheffield name." Landon was taken aback for a moment, then nodded. "Very well." I turned and walked through the vermilion gates, shutting out the sounds of weeping and begging behind me. Sunlight filtered through the carved doorways, casting patterns of light and shadow on the ground. Landon caught up, walking beside me after a moment of silence. He asked softly, "A soft heart?" I looked at the blooming crabapple trees in the courtyard and shook my head gently. "Not a soft heart, just letting go." A month later, word came that Eric had contracted a miasmic fever on the road to exile and died at a post station in the south. There was no one to claim his body. His final resting place was unknown. When I heard the news, I was trying on a newly tailored summer dress. Landon sat nearby, fiddling with a new jade hairpin. "Here, this will go perfectly with that dress." He handed it to me, his tone as casual as if he were commenting on the weather. I took the pin, placed it in my hair before the mirror, and after a moment's consideration, smiled slightly. "Your taste is acceptable." His eyes lit up, and he leaned in close. "In that case, Sister Lauren, will you consider my proposal? I have already drawn up the betrothal gift list. I guarantee it will be the most generous this capital has ever seen." I looked at his hopeful face in the bronze mirror, then at my own reflection, at the melancholy that had finally lifted from my brow. After a long moment, I gave a soft, Landon froze, as if he couldn't believe his ears. You agree?" I raised an eyebrow. "On the condition that a divorce is always an option if things do not work out." A look of pure ecstasy spread across his face, and he seized my hand. "Never. I promise to be 1,000 times better than that man." Seeing his unbridled joy, a genuine smile finally touched my own eyes. Perhaps a new beginning wasn't so bad after all. The sunlight outside was bright and clear, just as it had been on the afternoon many years ago when I first met Eric Crestwood. Only this time, there were no shadows on the path ahead.